Today we're cracking open some source material, focusing on what gets called the Ministry of Helps. We're mainly looking at Dr. Buddy Bell's handbook.
Yeah, and the mission really is to pull out some, well, maybe surprising ideas about church service.
Yeah.
No, it might be different than you think.
Okay, let's dig in. So, this whole concept, Ministry of Helps, is it actually, biblical?
According to the source, absolutely. It points straight to 1 Corinthians 12:28. God lists gifts he's placed in the church, and right there, helps.
Helps. What does that actually mean, though, the original word?
Good question. It's antelepsis in Greek. It means something like a laying hold of or to support, to come alongside and assist.
So, this isn't just filling volunteer slots. The source is saying it's a supernatural ministry, like placed by God.
Exactly. Just as valid, just as anointed as any other ministry gift mentioned there. That's a pretty significant shift for how many people view serving.
It really is. And it challenges that idea of some roles being more important than others.
Right. The source is clear. No big guns and little guns in the body of Christ. God doesn't value roles based on, like, visibility or how important they seem. Understanding that changes everything.
It does. It sort of levels the playing field, spiritually speaking.
Yeah.
So the handbook draws a line between just being a volunteer and being a minister of helps.
A really critical distinction. A volunteer, as it's described here, might, help when it's convenient, maybe needs constant direction, doesn't always feel essential.
And might miss out on rewards, the source says?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
But a minister of helps, they get that their service is ministry. They understand they're a vital part, empowered by God, and they're building eternal rewards.
That's a totally different motivation, a different identity, really. It's not just doing something for the ministry.
Your faithful service is the ministry. The source even has that acronym for HELP, having enough loving people serving.
Catchy. And it emphasizes why your role matters no matter what it is. There's that carburetor analogy.
Right, the truck needs all its parts, big and tiny. Without even a small piece, the whole thing might not work right. And 1 Corinthians 12:27 calls you a member in particular, specific, needed.
Okay, but you hear this a lot. I just don't feel led to do that. How does the source address that reluctance?
Well, I use a pretty direct illustration, the lead bullet idea.
The lead bullet.
Yeah, like hand someone a lead bullet, tell them to squeeze it. Now you've felt lead. It sounds maybe a bit blunt, but the point is, God's leading often comes through recognizing needs, responding to leadership, or just stepping out in faith based on your initial conviction. That conviction becomes your strength.
Your crowbar, as the source calls it.
Exactly. Which brings us to Elisha serving Elijah, a powerful example.
Right, Elisha wasn't exactly unoccupied.
Yeah.
12 yoke of oxen. That's significant wealth.
Huge. And when Elijah throws the mantle, Elisha makes this radical choice. Leaves it all. Elijah's response when Elisha wants to say goodbye is interesting, though. Go back again, for what have I done to you?
Sounds almost like Elijah's pushing him away, giving him an out.
It could seem that way. But the source interprets it as Elijah, making it absolutely clear. This decision is between you and God, that deep personal conviction. That was Elisha's crowbar.
The thing that kept him going.
Yes, kept him faithful. Serving Elijah ministered unto him for years. Even when Elijah seemed to test him, telling him to stay behind, Elisha stuck with it.
And it was through that service, that faithfulness, pouring water on Elijah's hands, the source notes that he was shaped and ultimately received that double portion. His service mattered.
It really highlights the principle. Even Jesus didn't do everything alone. He relied on the ministry of helps from his disciples.
Which leads to that reframe of Ephesians 4 verses 11 and 12.
Ah, yes. So important. Pastors, teachers, etc. They're given not just to do all the ministry work. They're given for the perfecting and the full equipping of the saints.
That's us. That's you listening.
Right. So that you can do the work of the ministry. It actually frees up pastors to focus on prayer and the word. Like Jesus sleeping in the boat.
Because the disciples were handling the rowing, enabling him to be rested for the storm ahead.
Exactly. And you see it again with the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus tells the disciples, you feed them.
They seated the people, they passed out the bread and fish.
And they gathered the leftovers. 12 baskets. One for each helper, the source points out. It shows God notices your part, and your involvement changes your faith, your life.
So, wrapping this deep dive up, the ministry of helps, according to this source, is clearly biblical, it's vital, it's supernatural, and it's essential for the church. Your faithfulness is that crowbar.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on. If God really designed you as a particular member, uniquely equipped for this work. How might stepping fully into that specific design unlock potential? Not just for the church, but maybe unexpectedly for you.